Great. Well, I'd like to make Missouri a better place for everyone to live, and I don't know exactly what factors were in that polling, but I think everything begins with the economy. That's prosperity in the future. We've got to provide opportunity through growth. I'm a strong proponent of education. We have to do something with health care. Not too thrilled with the path we're going down right now, but we're going to have to do something with health care to make things better. Can you hear me in the back?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll reiterate very quickly.
Stand up.
We're going to mess up the camera. All right. I said I want to make Missouri a better place for everyone. Women, men, children. Opportunity is what it's all about in Missouri. And that's what we need to have. We have a great place to live. We're right in the middle of everything. We get all kinds of weather, so we're never bored. But it's tough times. And we need to really pay attention to growth, job growth, and from there we can build our services and government and make Missouri a better place.
Well, I guess you want us to stand up, and that'll be fine. My family, I have my wife, I have 3 daughters, and earlier we had even a female dog. So the vote always was, you understand how that vote went. For a while I had them convinced that we counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 9. Since I usually was voting with my daughters, it worked. On Syria's side, we have an inequality between employment benefits for females and males. We have fewer corporate executives. We have fewer women that have been in government, have been able to be, and we are seeing a change. And I believe that we need to continue down this path. We need to reach the point, not where we are men and women, but where we are people. Thank you.
I'm not exactly sure where the standings came from or what study that was from. I agree with Dean that what I like are opportunities for all Missourians. And when I look at my 24-year-old daughter and just her starting out in her career, I want every opportunity for her that a young man her age would have. And I think that's what we want for all Missourians. In the state legislature, when we come up with our budget, we make sure that we provide in the state budget issues and topics that are there for women. For example, cervical cancer screenings, pap smear, and that we do women's health issues in the state legislature. So that is part of the budget that we do every year, and so I'm very, very proud to do that. My thought is whether it's man, woman, young or old, I will represent them to the best of my ability for the future of Missouri.
I enjoy the opportunity to be here tonight, and I want to add my voice as a mediator. We frequently deal with this issue of gender differences, and I like to approach them as a mediator with the 3 C principles. I call it communicate, cooperate, and collaborate together. And men and women see things differently, especially if we're talking about justice or equity or their view of things. But what comes right down to plain politics and this election, I think it's important, that Todd Akin and his comments is a clear reflection on one party, and I do not agree with him at all on his abortion views at all. But I think we need to be mindful and aware and certainly cooperative to everyone in the legislative process, male and female alike, and no more so than anywhere in the 21st District than right here in Saline County. Thanks.
It's kind of hard to speak for somebody else, so I don't know exactly how Ron would answer that question. I can only tell you what I do know about Ron, and that is since he's been a young man, he has always fought for equal rights for anybody, no matter what gender or color. He's been active in civil rights movements. He's been active in women's rights movements. So that I do know about him. How he would answer this question, I don't know exactly how he would do it, but I know from standing back and watching him, he has always been for equal rights for everybody. To that, because Ron is not for voter ID. I do know that. We've kind of argued that back and forth. So I'm speaking for Ron tonight, and I do know he's against voter ID.
Okay. I would concur as a Democrat and as a human being. I just don't think voter ID is necessary at this time at all. I've personally not seen any cases of voter fraud in the last 10 years. There has been some fraud in the clerk's level in the counting, but there hasn't been any fraud with voters themselves in ID, and I think a lot of this was motivated to prevent people from being able to vote. And if you look at the numbers of people and the age groups, it's very discriminatory against older people as well, who may or may not have picture ID. I just don't think it's necessary or needed at this time at all.
I think one of the most important things that we have in our country is the ability to vote and to make sure that our votes are accurate and that there's no chance of fraud whatsoever. Since I've been in the legislature, I have voted for our voter ID because I think it's very important that when a person goes to vote and they say that they are a certain person, they indeed are a certain person. In the 2000 election, when Bob Holden and Jim Town were running for governor, there was an orchestrated movement. People were actually bused to certain places to vote. There was a plan to keep the polls open. There was voter fraud that went on there. So that is one example of what can happen, and it really affected the outcome of who became governor in the year 2000. Senator Stouffer was the sponsor of our bill this past year and worked on this bill. I was always supportive of that. You know, when you board a plane, when you cash a check at Walmart, when you go to the bank to also cash a check, what's the first thing they ask for? Is a voter ID or a photo ID. And so I think that something as important as our elections, it's important that those are sacred, that we know the person who says they are really are. Right now, all you have to do is just show a statement from a utility bill. Well, anyone can take something like that to the voters' poll. And so I think it's a reasonable request to ask when someone goes to vote that we can do that. And we've proven that we can do that very inexpensively and have no cost to the voter to provide a photo ID.
200 years ago, when our state was formed, nearly 200 years ago, there were different provisions in the Constitution. Smaller entities, people knew the neighbors, and there was not a need for identification. You challenged a voter who was not legitimately voting in that district. Now today, we have larger precincts, townships, ever increasing, and less identification personally. So from that perspective, I will agree with Senator Pierce that we need to be recognized, but I believe that the effort that has been initiated on a national level was directed primarily at the elderly and at the black population, which has traditionally been a Democratic group of voters, and I believe that it was targeting a political group rather than for the purposes of legitimate identification. In 1990, I was the computer person for the state party in Jefferson City. From that time, I have worked with voters, voter file and identification, and I've not seen it.
Thank you, Stan.
Basically, I agree with Senator Pierce. I would vote for the bills that have been proposed in the legislature for the simple fact that your vote should count and you should be secure in your vote. I would disagree with Mr. Burdett. I think we've got voter fraud often we see these in elections. We had a conviction in the last presidential election just up in Kansas City. So these things do happen. It's a layer of security. It protects your vote. One person can negate your vote. And we do have some safeguards in there for seniors and those who would have difficulty getting a photo ID. So in essence, I'm for protecting your vote.
The degree now that